Hello, it's Colin Kelly here from Comsteria, your powerful communication partner, and right now I'm in the midst of making a podcast for a client. But I've got a problem. In the podcast, the client has used the wrong word, and it's factually incorrect and it needs changed. And so we're at the sort of final approval stage, which is a bit of a pain. And the client has said, "Look, can you change this word?" And I've thought, well, could I do some clever editing and patch it in? Have they used that word anywhere else? But that means I'm going to have to, trawl through all the other podcast material or go through the transcriptions, and I need to go and find it. And they still might not have even said that word. So the option is set up another call with them, get them, saying the whole sentence so as it doesn't sound too faked, and then I'll be able to replace the wrong sentence with the new sentence. But that involves coordinating a call, and I thought with all this hype about AI at the moment, this is where AI could really help me out and speed up my workflow. And I knew from my voiceover work and some of the other voiceover professionals that I speak to that there are AI systems that claim to be able to clone voices. So you give it a sample of you speaking, and then after that, it saves that sample, and anything that I type, it can make my voice say it. So I thought that's perfect. If I could give it a sample of my client, then I could just type in the correct word and use that in my podcast. So let's try it out just now. Now, there's a couple of things. First of all, I'm just using the free version of this system, which doesn't let me upload. And I think as well with privacy and data security, it's actually quite difficult to work with a sample of someone else's voice. It's easy to turn on your own microphone and speak in live, but to upload something, you need a pro enterprise account, which is going to cost money, and they need to speak to you first. If it's just me on my own, without paying any money, it's quite easy for me to do this, but using someone else's voice I would need to jump through quite a lot of hoops. I would really need their permission. So my original plan for this at the moment isn't really possible. But it's interesting just to see how good is it and what could it do with my own voice. So here we're using Resemble.ai. I am on a free account and I'm using a dummy email address and a login that I don't use for anything else because I'm a bit concerned about where my data might be going. So what it made me do was it made me turn my microphone on. It gave me a sentence to read, and the sentence that it used for the sample was a disclaimer. So I had to say, it recorded me saying, "I consent to my voice being used for this, this, and this." It says I will still have ownership of my voice, but it doesn't really go into much detail about what else it might do with my voice. I'm not particularly bothered, and the reason for that will become apparent when I play back to you in a second what it's actually doing. So it got my sample, and you've heard me for the last couple of minutes, so you've heard how I speak, you've heard my voice. So here's my sentence. This is similar to what we're needing to do for the podcast, okay? So I think Scotland is considerably ahead of England when it comes to early years education. There's me saying it. Here is the AI saying it. This is my supposed cloned voice.
I think Scotland is considerably ahead of England when it comes to early years education.
Now, does it sound human? I think reasonably.
I think Scotland is considerably ahead of England when it comes to early years education.
But it doesn't sound like me. I mean, it really doesn't sound remotely like me. I think Scotland is considerably ahead of England when it comes to early years education.
I think Scotland is considerably ahead of England when it comes to early years education.
There's no way that I could paste that into my podcast with everything else sounding like this and then popping this voice into it.
I think Scotland is considerably ahead of England when it comes to early years education.
So, yes, okay, it's a human voice, and if you'd never heard mine...
I think Scotland is considerably ahead of England when it comes to early years education.
You could pass that off, although I think if you'd listen to a whole podcast in that voice, you would tire of it because it doesn't really sound like a real person.
I think Scotland is considerably ahead of England when it comes to early years education.
So I think the conclusion is it's good, but it's not good enough. And on that evidence, I am not particularly concerned about my voice being cloned, and it's not going to help me with my podcast. Partly, which is a good thing, is it's actually quite difficult to clone someone else's voice. So, without their permission or without their knowledge. So I think that's fair enough. Although if I paid enough, then it does let you upload. So I'm going to have to go and arrange a call with my client and get them saying a little sentence to save my podcast. Thanks for watching, everybody. I just thought that might be of interest.